welcome to the Ego versus Ego episode. This I guess is the third episode right here. My name is Ego Ferguson, father, entrepreneur from the Bahamas, an immigrant, and basically going through this journey with my son, through the ups and downs about life with this gentleman right here.
And I'm the original Ego Ferguson Jr. You know what I'm talking about? Ego versus ego. So let's get it popping.
All right. Ego versus ego. That's it.
That's
all you got?
Hey, that's all I got today.
Okay.
You see the background?
So the background says itself. Okay, good. I think the last time we had this conversation, we left off at the whole experience with you with the transition from Florida to Maryland. We went through the experience of coming from Frederick, Maryland, winning your first championship with the Walkersville Tigers. What was it, Lions?
It was Lions, yeah.
Lions? Okay, Walkersville Lions, your first championship, and going through that experience, going from the burbs, as we so-called call it, going into the inner city to get that grind in there. And I know as we went through that whole experience right there, one thing that I think that was left out was the prior to that Walkersville transformation. I want to make sure that we identify some of the challenges that transpired during that whole thing. Is like, and I think we never really sat down and really discussed some of your feelings or some of what was going through your mind. Here's a situation where you're in, is it Deltona? I think it's
Deltona. Just moved to Deltona. First year in Deltona, going to middle school, a new environment.
How was Deltona?
It was different. Just like it's like anything, a new environment, a new scene. You got to get familiar with everything. So you got to think it's like a new set of friends, a new set of environment, new school, new teachers, new everything. And it was a lot different than East Men's where you're familiar with. So when you went to Deltona, it was a lot of getting familiar with different things and introducing new things.
Mm-hmm. So you go from Deltona, and I can tell you right now, that was probably my second year in Maryland. Mm-hmm. I just built my first home from ground up. So that was an accomplishment in itself, getting that house. And then through that whole journey, one thing I knew I had, at that point, I didn't have anybody but you. You're my only child at the time right there. And was trying to, that whole process of co-parenting. You being in Florida, I'm in Maryland, and we gone through the whole experience right there. And then I got that phone call. I can recall that phone call right now. Your mother called me in the middle of the day, and she was like, "Hey," and this is when we talked about that whole experience. He was a single father, newly married. You being in Florida, and I get a phone call saying that, "Hey, come get your son. I'm sick and tired of this shit." And at that time, Veronica and Brenda were going at it, just hammering at it. And I was like, "Okay, come get your son. I'm sick and tired of this shit." So, literally, the first thing that hit my head, this is me. This is what I'm going through. I'm a professional. I'm going through this whole experience. And I've seen this before through my other friends or other friends and different guys who I've always talked to about this whole experience. Like, I remember Keith Lynn, a friend of mine who I worked with. He had a couple of different baby mamas, whatever the case may be. And he had to make decisions on accepting the fact that he's remarried and there's outside kids, and what do I do? Do I bring my kid in the house, create more tension, or whatever the case may be, or that whole thing right there? And during that whole period of time right there, from this now to come from my perspective, is like, okay, I had you in Florida right there, and it's like, okay, what am I gonna do? And it's like, that's the first major decision I had to right then. I was like, all right, fuck it. I called Jeff and said, let's go to Florida. Jeff will ride or die.
Hey, Jeff on straight ride.
So my question for you is, now I don't know exactly what's going on in Florida. All I know is I got a phone call and say, hey, go get your son. I'm sick and tired of this shit. Tell me what transpired on your side, because we never had this conversation.
I mean, I think it's a great topic to touch on. I think when you look at the dynamic, right, you don't realize what you have and what you don't have until you leave a situation. When I went to Deltona, it was so new to me, right? I didn't realize what I was looking for, essentially. So when you go to a situation like that and you're dealing with new people, new environments, gangs and things of this nature, you know what I mean? You want to prove yourself.
Gangs?
Yeah, gangs, yeah.
In Deltona?
Bloods, Crips, the whole 9 yards.
Get the fuck out of here.
First time I'm experiencing all this stuff. And so, like, you see a situation where you got this side versus that side. You have fights. You got different situations where if you're not involved in it, you're getting picked on. You see what I'm saying? And so it's like one of those things where either you get involved or you get left out. So I was like one of the few people that I'm like, all right, I'm not about to be punked. I'm not about to be pushed around because you say you this or you say you that. So a lot of those situations was something that I wasn't familiar with that I'm dealing with in the midst of. And unfortunately, when you have parents that work so much like my mom worked and like how you worked, it's hard to have these conversations about what you're dealing with in middle school. Because like you said, you don't think gangs are in middle school. So when you start to see stuff like this, you got to adapt quickly.
So this is middle school. You're dealing with gangs.
7th grade.
You serious?
7th grade. I mean, I remember my first time getting in a fight. We was in science class. It was crazy because it was like all on brawl essentially. Kid coming to class making a disruption. Teacher tries to stop the situation but can't control the situation and it outbursts. And that's how school was for us in middle school.
So think about this. So you're experiencing this from your point of view right here. As a parent from the burbs, as you call it. So I get the phone call and I need to react. So my whole reaction was, okay, let me go ahead and get you secure. First of all, secure you. So let's get you down here and getting you back to Maryland. So that was my primary focus right there. Getting you to Maryland. So my thing was that transition from you. And we never had that discussion on exactly what was that. That was your first major obstacle coming from Deltona transition
to Maryland?
Yeah. How was that transition?
It was different. Like a lot of things, again, until you leave situation, you don't really understand what you're dealing with. So my first time understanding black versus white was outside of Florida, but I was living in segregation. And it's crazy because you don't process a lot of stuff in the midst of doing stuff. You know what I mean? I remember in elementary school where the white kids would go to the left side, we would go to the right side. They catching the bus and we walking home. You don't think about stuff like that, but when you go outside the environment, you understand segregation different times.
How did Maryland bring it up? I mean,
what Maryland did was it gave me a chance to see the other side. Before I didn't realize I wasn't seeing the other side. I'm just living in my area, my environment. Mm-hmm. When we went to Maryland, it opened the door just to be around everybody, not just one type of person, but being around all types of people.
I can tell you one thing. I know one thing when the major, I think I sit back. I can remember my cousin Barry used to come by. We used to the barbecues and all that stuff. I think when I first got you down that way was just watching how you used to eat. You used to only eat with a spoon.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, you need to use a fork, a knife, and all that. I had to teach you how to do that. And all the napkins. Because you used to always use a shitload of napkins. I'm like, what the fuck?
Probably still to this day.
A whole bunch of napkins. Like, what the hell is going on with this right? So my whole thought process was, I know one thing, because I always had multicultural friends, from executives, I can go in the hood, I can do whatever the case may be, and I know you made reference to. I know we talked about this in the past, and it's like when you went to Maryland, it was your first time spending the night at a white person's house.
Yeah.
Explain to me how was that? How was that experience right there?
I think when I look at it, right, I think what a lot of people don't realize is in the midst of growing or surviving, like I like to say, the thing that's missed is growth and development. So when you survive and to make a dollar, when you survive and to keep a house on, you survive and to keep the lights on, you know what I mean? Growth and development is the last thing you really think about. You thinking about the necessities of right now. So when I went to Maryland, what it gave me was a different opportunity to grow outside of the survival mindset, to see different things and to see people in a different light. With going up north, it's just a different lifestyle. I think when you lived in the South for so long and then you go up north, people treat you different. You know what I mean? They act different. They talk different. In the South, we have more of a yes sir, no sir mentality. We're not going to question a lot of stuff. In the North, everything's questions.
Really?
Yes, everything. It's more intellect. It's more conversation back and forth. We accept a lot of things in the South.
Really? So it was that big a change?
Huge difference from the schooling to what we were taught to the people and the interactions to people allowing you to be inside their homes and different things of that nature. It was a completely different world.
So my whole thought process, and here's a parent. At that time right there, my whole thought process was just getting you out of the environment that you were currently in, and not really truly understanding exactly. So now we play Monday morning quarterback, not going back and understanding what you were going through. You know what I'm saying? So I took you out of MIMS or Deltona, whatever the case may be, and brought you up to Frederick, Maryland. And I think from a parent standpoint, my primary focus was at that point right there was, can I house you? Can I protect you? Can I provide for you at that time? House, protect, and provide. At no time during that same experience did I ever thought about what you were going through mentally. That whole transition.
And it's hard, but think about all the things you think about. You got a house, protect, and provide. Those are 3 essentials that you have to do on a day-to-day basis. So when we have these conversations, we don't even realize like input and output. You only got so much energy in a day, right? If you look at an input and output, I could put so much energy towards this thing or that thing, but something is getting missed. And I think that's the biggest thing. Like when we talk about these situations, it's like in the midst of survival, you have to miss something to be able to make something.
That's crazy. When we sit back and we look at it and we go through this whole experience, and so now that I got you up here, so now it's okay. Now we survive one episode, potential disaster. Now I have you in Maryland. So now I have you in Maryland, and now you're in Maryland and you're balling, you're doing your thing, you're going to school. And I think one of the first things that I realized, and most folks don't realize this, and I realized especially when you got up to Maryland, was the difference in the educational system.
Man.
Florida versus Maryland. I didn't realize, they told me point blank this, so you were so far behind educationally from Florida to Maryland. It was like almost like light years. You were so far behind. And I was like, what the fuck? Because me coming from the Bahamas, I was always ahead. So coming to this system in the United States, in the Bahamas, I took about 16 courses during the school year. 16. Where you guys in the United States only took 5 or 6. So I was
8.
always ahead. So now dealing with you were way behind. So you have the athletics, and then you have the education, and then and so my whole thought process was that now you're in Maryland, and they're telling me that you were far behind. How do we get you ramped up to the Maryland standard? Because you were far behind. How was that a whole experience for you?
I think you don't realize the difference until you get to a situation. So in Florida, I feel like I'm right in time with all of my peers. You see what I'm saying? Like we all going through growing at the same pace. But I realized when you got to Maryland, it was more critical thinking, more responses, just instead of just A, B, or C, multiple questions type of things. So it was different for me at first. You know what I mean? Understanding that it's a different type of learning, a different type of curriculum, a different type of standard. So the adjustment definitely was a period of getting used to. But what I loved about it was a priority. I think, especially in the South, sports come kind of over education in a sense. I think when I went to Maryland, what I realized education was a priority, so it kind of shifted my focus to kind of get with the program essentially.
So now, even I know we sit back and we look at. I can recall growing. I used to come down and spend time with your granddad, who was old Johnny B. You gotta give shout out to Johnny B.
Shout out to Johnny B, man.
I can recall many times having a conversation with him, and he used to always pull me aside, and he was like, "Man, look here, let me tell you something right now. I really appreciate what you do for my daughter and my grandson." He's like, "Thank you for taking him out of here." And it really never sat to me exactly what he was talking about, and like, because I looked at Mims, Titusville, as just another town in South Florida, or not South Florida, in Florida, but he grew up in that area. How is that whole area comparison to Maryland? I know that's a big transition right there.
Yeah, that's huge. It's night and day. And I think the biggest thing that you said that kind of we don't talk about is exposure, right? If you expose to different things and different circumstances, then you can constantly adapt and adjust. In Mims, we was kind of stuck in the same way of lifestyle, the same situations and the same people. So again, if we didn't see it, we can't see nothing different. Until I left the areas when I seen something different. I remember my first time traveling, like when somebody kept asking me a question about what college I wanted to go to. It was so crazy because I didn't have an answer to the situation because I didn't think that far ahead. But I remember we was traveling somewhere and we stopped at a gas station or somewhere and I seen the little postcard said Appalachian State.
We talked about that.
And so when I seen the postcard, I was like, oh, I got an answer for these motherfuckers now. You see what I'm saying? Like
Appalachian State.
Appalachian State.
Really?
But when you think about it, it's like this is from me literally seeing something on the road in the midst of us traveling and giving an answer to a question I didn't have. And the reason I didn't have the answer to that question because I wasn't exposed to these things at an early age. And I think that's what Maryland gave me, just the exposure to different things and to think outside of the norm, the day-to-day stuff. So to think further than my mind can process at the time. So when I'm talking about different things of schools and what people are doing, they got big dreams. I'm just like, damn. I can't be the only one talking about tomorrow when y'all talking about next year, the year after next, and what you doing this and that and the third.
So Appalachian State was your first choice?
I mean, I'm trying to tell you, if the postcard wasn't so far, they had the mountains in the back, it may not have caught my attention.
Do you know where Appalachian State is at?
Yeah, in North Carolina.
You know what? I have a client that's in Appalachian State. That's scary. That's crazy right there. So my thing is, you had that transition that's your first major life changing moment. Yeah. So you're leaving Mims, now you in Maryland. So you're up in Maryland now. I think at that time, I was currently married at the time. So, and at that point, my wife at the time, she was not really keen to you moving in. Yeah. So that is another major transition right there. Were you moving into a house that you truly not welcome completely? Mm-hmm. So here's another major transition in your life right there. And at that time, now I'm married, I have you, I have everything. Me personally, at that point in time,
you overloaded.
I'm good. No, not overloaded. I was good.
Yeah, but you got to think though, at that time also, you was so much into what you were doing. Essentially, even when you made the transition, it was a lot of times where you were gone. So I'm in the midst of the house. The midst of the house was crazy. A lot of people don't understand. Listen, it get real in that house. Hey, shout out to my stepmom for making it happen. But boy, hey, you did your big one. You did your big one now.
So now you're in Maryland. Yeah. You're out of Florida now. You're in Maryland, and so you're going through that. I know we talked about last episode. We talked about Frederick versus Baltimore versus DC, and getting the transition, that whole experience right there. I can tell you right now, we left off in Champaign, Illinois. You got your first college offer. Coach Loxley and University of Illinois. We had Coach Tillman. God
rest in peace,
Coach Tillman. So it was one hell of a person right there. So we had that experience, and when you look at that whole trip, please, from your point of view, I really want to. I know we talked about some of during the last episode. We talked about some of the experiences during the trip, but I really want to highlight, because it was one of those oxymoron, because one of those great moments. Your first offer, that whole briefcase. We thought that briefcase was coming from the sky.
It didn't come like that.
It didn't come like that. And then we're going to talk about what transpired during the same time during that whole thing. So tell me about that whole trip. What did you think about that whole trip?
Just say you want to get to the BS. You know what I'm talking about? That's what you want to get to. Let's get to it. That trip was a epic moment. Like I said, to go in a situation with no expectations, literally going to a situation where you don't understand the process, you don't understand what a scholarship really is, and you literally looking at another person go through his recruiting in a sense. So for us to be able to pull off a scholarship in that moment, it was nothing but God. But also, just like you have highs, you have lows, right? And this is the truth that a lot of people want to talk about. In the midst of me getting my first offer, it probably was like 30 minutes after I got the first. I couldn't even enjoy the high of getting the offer before I got that second phone call. And that second phone, a lot of people don't talk about, but that second phone call is literally me getting accused of rape, which is a crazy situation because in my eyes, you know what I mean, I could never be accused of something like this essentially because of how I live my life and how I operate essentially. But to see a situation come out of left field, it was like crazy to me because I couldn't even process the offer, let alone process the rape allegation.
What grade were you in now?
10th grade.
So now
10th grade going to 11th grade.
Here's the crazy shit about me, and here's the crazy shit about not me. But the whole situation was that whole trip to begin with was, I orchestrated that trip. I had to do my, do what I do.
Your 1-2.
My 1-2, literally. We went on the back of Darren Drakeford.
Fact, shout out to Darren Drakeford too.
Darren Drakeford out of DC. So we went on a trip on the Darren Drakeford. So with Coach Tillman, rest in peace, Coach Tillman got you to go on that trip to Maryland. Illinois. And it was, as a parent, you talking about going through the highs and lows in one weekend, in the same day.
Shit, the same day.
Some people talk about highs and lows of the weekend or whatever. We went through the highs and lows in one fucking day. Here's you getting this D1 offer,
which we've been told is glorified, like literally,
which is almost unknown.
The last 2 years that this is what stamps you. This gives you a blue check, like a verification.
So now think about this. Remember, what's the kid name? The running back from the parent who said you couldn't get a D1 offer.
Rico Johnson.
Shout
out to Rico Johnson too. Man.
So Rico's telling you that you're a D2 at best, and even some of the coaches, Coach Vic.
Yeah, shout out to Coach Vic too.
Coach Vic saying you are at best a D2 college athlete. So we go to University of Illinois, and you get your first D1 offer. So now, could you imagine? I'm telling you right now, from a parent standpoint, I'm looking at this whole thing as like, shit, my son, here's somebody who I thought, at best, with all the fight that I had with all the coaches and all the local folks, is like, you getting a D2 offer, you get a D1 offer from University of Illinois. So I'm at my high. And literally, within
Shit, by 30 minutes.
30 minutes?
We didn't get to the hotel room.
We haven't got to the hotel room.
We still talking about this.
We talking about this high about you getting the D1 offer, you going against the fucking Gladiator, whatever the case, whoever the fucking the
number one offensive lineman,
number one officer in the North, Midwest, whatever the case may be. You destroy him. You get your first D1 offer, and I get a phone call saying, "Hey, your son is accused of fucking rape or whatever the fuck it was." So you talking about the highs and the lows within the space of an hour. I know what I was going through. What were you going through from your whole standpoint?
Man, again, it's like one of those situations that you can't prepare for, right? Nobody tells you in the midst of you living and going to high school and developing relationships and dealing with females that these things will come up, you know what I mean? I'm thinking if I say yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, and I keep this thing 1,000, life gonna be cool. But obviously, I was mistaken at that point because when it happened, I was so shocked. I didn't know how to tell you, to be honest with you, because when he called, he was so aggressive with the situation. I'm like, ain't no way. Ain't no way.
So who's he?
I mean, the guy that
the dad,
the father that accused me of rape. Basically, it was like I won a situation where I guess he found something in the phone or he realized something was going on and he took matters into his own hands. And my whole thing was like, I never got a chance to explain what was going on. You know what I mean? I never got a chance to defend myself. It was like a onslaught, essentially, especially where we were in the situation that we were dealing with. You got to think, we just got basically the holy grail of offers. You know what I mean? My first D1 offer. In the midst of that same situation, now I'm getting accused of rape, and I got to explain to you what's been going on for the last 4 or 5 months, how I've been operating, you know what I mean? It was all crazy.
I tell you what, even during that whole experience right there, I can recall, the highs of leaving Champaign, Illinois, and getting that offer, and then getting that phone call about the accusation of rape, and I'm thankful. Gosh, I mean, I'm back again. I sit back and I'm so thankful for Coach Tillman. And he was like, Coach Tillman's like, just chill. We got this. Let's figure out exactly what was going on before we start reacting. Yeah. And so I'm thankful again. I keep saying I'm thankful to Coach Tillman for at least settling me down. So I know when I got the phone call, I'm not sure if you were aware of this. I called the father. Mm-hmm. I called the father, and I was like, because I knew the young lady that you were seeing. She was nice little chick. You know what I'm saying? Nice little Catholic little chick in the neighborhood and all that. So I'm very very familiar with her. Now, when I called him, and I was like, hey, again, we're still in Illinois.
And we
still at the hotel. We haven't even made back to Maryland yet.
Get back into the hotel yet. Literally, the call happened before we can make it back to. I remember it's like yesterday.
So I'm sitting here. I'm like,
ain't no way.
Mr. Whoever I can't even call the parent name. I was like, hey, I understand this. Now this is a parent to parent. I understand, and I sympathize with you, because now what I did at that point was, I transferred myself from being your dad, and I transferred myself to being her dad.
Yeah, and that's a tough situation because as a father, nobody wants to hear that type of thing that happened to your daughter. So I completely understand where he was coming from.
But I did that, mm-hmm. And so I told him, like, look here, and I do understand your position. I said, I do understand your position. And I was like, here's what you have. You have two, and this is a conversation him and I had. I said, you have two young adults, adolescents. Well, I don't give a fuck what category you put them in. They're two adolescents making a decision. You and I can agree that the decision that they made was incorrect. But again, these are two adolescents making a decision. But again, these are two adolescents. You know what I'm saying? I don't think there's nothing malice was intended. And so his automatic response was like, hey, He's 6'3", 280 pounds, and he told me stats. Like, what the fuck? Like,
it's the first time I realized people watching me. Like,
I
really,
was like, it threw me off.
I never experienced nothing like that before.
I was like, forget what's happening. He's like, you 6'3", 280
He went
pounds.
from hurt to destroying, like literally in a matter of seconds. He was hurt about a situation to now want to destroy everything that you have going on.
Yeah, so I was like, dude, your daughter comes. I know your daughter personally. She comes by my house, but I can assure you that she never spent a night over my place. She never was alone with my son while she was here. So now whatever transpired had to have been something outside of my view, and which was correct.
Yeah,
you guys had met at the common area.
Yeah.
Where we live.
I'm gonna be honest. You know, it was a couple times she invited me to the house late night. It was a couple times we met in the park. But like, I think the biggest thing is like we was just two kids. You know what I mean? Experiencing life at the same time. That situation was different, man. I cannot lie. Like, it was a shocker for my mental. It was a shocker spiritually. It was a shocker in all three levels, to be honest. I think what I learned in that situation, though, like you said, the biggest thing is having patience, you know, understanding who you are in those type of situations, because it'll make you question yourself. It'll make you question the things that you feel like you done did or didn't do. And I think, shout out to her mom, man. You know,
that's what.
Shout out to the mother for stepping up in
the mother really
crucial situation, because, you know, at one point I thought everything was about to go downhill. You know what I mean? I thought everything was getting taken away from me. And for her to make that move and to take that stance, you know what I mean, just to understand that we are two kids making a decision, it was everything.